Good afternoon, welcome to Fishing for Bees. This is my YouTube channel on swarm catching and beekeeping. I've never purchased bees, I've never purchased a queen. Currently in our production yard we have 6 colonies. Currently in our nuke yard we have 6 colonies. The 6 in the nuke yard are swarm catches from this year. In the past we've given away 10 frame colonies in the spring because I simply have too many bees. So if any of that interests you, please like and subscribe. Today we're going to talk about late season swarm catches. So we have a swarm catch that we caught at the end of June, beginning of July, I'm not sure exactly when, but that's late in the season and these swarms have a hard time building up. So you can feed them, and you should probably be feeding them. I have not been feeding them, but feed them 1-to-1, but eventually they stop drawing comb. They just completely put the brakes on drawing comb. No matter what you do as far as feeding them, you're not going to be able to get them to draw any more comb. And the problem that I've mentioned in other videos is going into winter with partially drawn frames that are not completely drawn out, and how that's a problem for heat management, for them to have mobility inside the colony during the winter, and obviously if the comb is not there, they have no place to store reserves. So partially drawn comb is a bad thing. So you need to decide what is your frame configuration that you're going to go into winter with. You know, when you catch a swarm early in the season, it's easy to build them up to 20 frames and 2 double deeps. And in my swarm catches, I only give them 1 bait comb. So we're drawing 19 frames before winter with no problem with those early season swarm catches. The late season swarm catches are not going to draw out to 20 frames. Now you have options. You can get them to 20 frames if you're a beekeeper and you have frames available. So that's what we're going to go over today. So we have 5 frame nuke in our holding yard that I need to get to 10 frames. I'm going to run all my swarm catches 5/5 this winter. I have a video on why, because I believe that they prefer 5/5 as far as a chimney instead of 10 deep, if you want to check out that video. So they're currently, we're going to get in there and we're going to inspect it in this video, but I believe they're probably close to 5 frames drawn out, and I'm not feeding them. So I can boost them quickly by giving them frames from other colonies. In the previous video, we had 2 laying worker situations in our production yard, so that's where all these frames came from. And I'm going to go over how you want to set it up. So whether it's a 10 frame, an 8 frame, or a 5 frame, it's the same. You want to set it up the way the bees would set it up. So if you have honey frames, this is almost full honey. If you have honey frames, you can see down in these cells there's nectar. It's just not capped, but this is pretty much a honey frame. Where do the bees want their honey frames? On the outside edges. So even if this was a 10 frame, you would put your honey frames on the outside edges. So same thing. It's got some pollen in it, it's got some bee bread, it's got a honey rainbow, and it's got some nectar. We're going to put that on the outside edge. If this was an 8 frame or a 10 frame, I would go 1 more honey frame. And maybe even on a 10 frame, 3 on one side and 2 on the other. That leaves you 5 frames in the middle for brood. So as we work our way in, we're giving them less honey frames. This is not the most ideal for brood. That's why it's on the outside. You can see it's falling apart too. They'll fix that. So it's going to be more of a honey frame going into winter. What's crucial is when you get to the center. Okay? The center should be brood frames. So it should be all worker cells. It should not be drone cells. If you had a laying worker situation, be careful. Don't put drone cells in the center, because in the winter they can't do anything with that. So that's going to go in the middle. Again, it doesn't matter how many frames you're running. It's the same setup. Honey on the outsides, brood frames in the middle. This one I wish wasn't in here, actually. I'm going to have to find a different frame. I don't want plastic in my nuke yard this year, so I didn't realize this ended up in here, but the same thing. So more of a brood frame, right? Because it's in the center and that's what they're going to lay up in the wintertime. So again, whether it's 5 frames, 10 frames, 8 frames, it doesn't matter. If you're donating frames to your late season swarm catch, set it up the way that they would want it. Honey on the outside, working your way towards brood frames. And you'll springboard them so fast that they'll have that all cleaned up and either filled with honey, if that's what they're doing as far as winter preparation, or she'll lay those up and lay one more round of probably soon to be winter bees in those combs that you give them. So they're going to put on the brakes, they're going to stop drawing comb. You need to help them. Even in the state of Michigan, you can run a 5-frame nuke in the winter. I like to get them to 10 frames, and I have enough frames floating around that that's not an issue. All right, so here we are in the nuke yard. I fixed the frames. If you're wondering why I'm so adamant about plastic, is I'm not running plastic in these swarm catches. I'm actually phasing all plastic out. I'm using starter strips. I have videos on why I feel they're better, especially for catching swarms. So here's another thing. If you saw in my other video, I got completely lit up. I took 20 to 30 stings in our production yard, and here's your pro tip. These are not the gloves that I wore in the production yard. That was just a couple days ago, and there's still stingers in the gloves. The attack pheromone is still on the gloves. Unfortunately, I only have one pullover, but this took a lot less stings. Don't wear that same equipment so close to the incident that you had when you were attacked. Like I said, that was just 2 or 3 days ago. That pheromone is still on those gloves, and you will find out that it is still strong enough to trigger bees if you wear that equipment at the wrong time. We're still on a dearth right now. The bees very well could still be aggressive. Obviously, that was a different yard. Don't wear that equipment that was attacked. Give it to your significant other. So I'm just gonna do a quick inspection on this one. As I said, it was a late season swarm catch, end of June. They were very well built up before I installed them, so I don't think there'll be any issue with them being at 5 frames. I just want to take a quick peek, because once I put this second box on here, if you watch my videos, I probably will not go down into this box again until next spring, other than to drop off Formic Pro if I do choose to treat, but that'll go right on top, right? So the last time of looking at these frames for me is right now. So you don't want wonky frames on the ends. If there's one that's not drawn out very well, we're gonna slide it in. I'm hoping that we don't trigger these bees like I did the other day in the other yard. It was brutal. So this is exactly the reason why I'm in here. Okay, this is 3/4 drawn out. That's not acceptable for winter. You have to be careful depending on the time of season with your frame manipulation. You don't want to put a honey frame in the middle of a brood nest. You can see there really isn't any honey frames in this colony, at least on this end. She's using everything for brood. I have to back up. I don't want to roll the queen. I don't want to roll bees. That's a good way to trigger bees. So I'm gonna have to take this one out for the time being. Move that one to a safe spot so that this one can be slid in safely without crushing or rolling bees. My hope is that they'll draw that out. I think they will. One of the reasons why I believe they will is because we're putting above their heads honey, which hopefully will stimulate them to draw more comb, honey and nectar, to draw more comb. Wow, these bees are actually really, really gentle and docile. They're really calm. More perfect frame, we'll put that on the outside edge. We're moving those other ones in because it's not as easy for them to ignore it if it's in the center of their nest and it's annoying. They'll be forced to address it and draw it out. These we know were already set up right, the way we wanted them. there's no concern as far as space. Another thing why I didn't go all the way to the other side to check the comb is because that was my bait comb on what would be your left side of the colony on the bottom there. I know that's drawn out. That was my bait comb. That was completely drawn out and ready to go, and probably full of nectar and honey. So I'm just going to tighten up these frames, do my best to continue to be gentle with them. Close them up. This one should be good to go into winter now. So our last catch of the year. I'll still hope for another one. I have plenty of more frames. If I caught a late season catch now, when I installed it, I would give them frames and I would set up that first 5 frame box the way they want it. And then I would have another complete set like this one to put on a little bit later once she lays that up. So really happy with this one. Really calm bees, great brood pattern. So likely this is a this year queen. This is not an overwintered queen. So nice young queen ready to go into winter. Thanks for watching. I hope your bees are well.